Welcome to the Millennial and a Boomer Walk into a Coffee Bar podcast.
The very best podcast to get your life advice in the form of a grande caramel macchiato in a venti cup, 1/3 whole milk, 1/3 almond milk, 1/3 soy milk, double the amount of vanilla syrup, caramel wall in the cup, no caramel drizzle on top, upside down, of course, tall ice cup, whipped cream, rounded lid, one shot extra espresso, decaf, cinnamon sprinkled on the top, and for the name, that's David, spelled Dafydd, please.
Or to get your business, finance, and life support black coffee advice, I'm Dan, I'm a Boomer.
And I'm Chase, the Millennial. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, we are back and ready with part 2 of this, I don't know what to call it, the Make More, Spend Less mini-series within our greater personal finance series, which has been a ton of fun. We kind of ended the last one after talking about ways to make more money. And a lot of people say, oh, you got to get a better job and that's the only way. No, we gave you, 6, 7 different ways to make more money. And then you ended right after I so eloquently laid out the fact that in order to understand how to spend less, you cannot let culture dictate your decision. Right. Culture says it's fine to be in debt, it's fine to spend money on things that you want, and that the things that you want are actually needs. And all of those things are lies. So now with that understanding, let's dive right into how do we spend less money?
Let me just say it in real eloquently, since you use that word. It's not in perpetuity. Right? Now, you can look that big word up. You don't need to stop spending money forever and ever and ever. You need to stop spending money to balance your budget, and then you can implement these back into your life as you can afford them. Live within your means. So I also look at this thing and TV, right? We all like TV, satellite, cable, or even some of the streaming services. And it can be pricey. And so there's one really good way to do that is to cut back on your TV service. Now, I'll tell you, the one right there, you're looking at it if you're watching on YouTube, rabbit ears, antenna rabbit ears. I've got them on 2 or 3 of my TVs. And now that they've gone to digital broadcasting, the pictures on my rabbit ears are as good as any picture I've had in streaming or satellite or cable TV. And if you go to fcc.gov, that will show you what channels are available over the airwaves by your zip code. Big time savings, especially if you're not a big TV watcher and you want to watch the local news or you want to watch some of the major networks. Man, go to rabbit ears. And you can spend $25, $35 and get a pretty nice set of rabbit ears that you actually plug in, and they will give you a pretty perfect picture.
Wait a minute. You said $29.99?
Okay, that's when I bought mine. So maybe that's $59.99. Or
what I'm getting at is you're telling us to cut it out. And for everything we have, that's $29.99 a month.
A one-time payment is not a monthly payment.
There we go. You're actually saving money. 1 month's worth of Hulu or Netflix will get you in perpetuity, to use your big word, your big boomer word, television.
Now let me tell you, I've got some for $5.99 before that are just the kind that you plug in and hook the things back there. You don't plug it in. It's not generating any good picture, and you have to always be adjusting them and stand on one hand and put your arm in the air. Yeah. But no, you can get rabbit ears cheap, and it's a one-time purchase to save your monthly payment while you're getting your finances back in order. Boom.
Well, I'll boom. I'll give you this. First of all, I don't think many millennials watch the news anymore because we realize they're just lying to us all the time. So I understand why you would want to get rabbit ears, but from a millennial perspective, in order to save money, you can simply watch YouTube for free. Now, I'm not saying YouTube Live or you get all the other channels and it's $80 a month. You can just go to YouTube And there's tons of content on there. So we're not asking you to never watch TV again. What we're saying is cut out the paid for media in the short term. And if you need some good YouTube recommendations, I've got all kinds of good ones of people that I watch, and they're telling a story and it's full episodes, and they're wonderful. So there are ways to do it for free or incredibly cheap one-time costs.
Right, you still have to buy your provider, right? But I read an article that said the average household has 4 paid services. That's HBO, that's Hulu, that's something Prime, that 4. And even if they're only $5 to $25 a piece, what do you need 4 for? Spend your time reading a book with paper. Anyway, we're getting off there, but there's ways to cut back on your TV or on that type of expenses.
And if you're taking some advice from the last episode, you're now doing a side hustle, and that's taking the time of your TV watching anyway. So let's go ahead and both make more money and spend less.
There you go. Boom. You're hooking them together, right? You're making them join one another. Hey, the other thing is on your cell phone plan, shop around, cut down on the cost there. Number one, change your habits, right? If like my cell phone plan, I get an allotted amount of time. When I hit that time, it doesn't turn me off. It slows down my data. And so I was just fine, and I can stream and everything else. It does slow it down. I rarely get to that point, but you could consider something like that, not getting cut off entirely, but slowing down. And then you change your habits of talking, texting, and searching the web.
And a lot of that can be helped with Wi-Fi, right? If you have the option to get on Wi-Fi, jump on Wi-Fi. You're no longer using your data.
Exactly.
We've got a great example. We talked about it briefly on a different podcast where we actually did just change our cell phone plan. And we were with one of the big carriers and went with one of the smaller carriers. And you know what happened? I improved our talk and text. I added a phone line, and I reduced our monthly bill by $74 by going with one of the smaller guys. And we've had it now for, 6 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks. I have experienced zero change in how I use it. So check out what else is out there. You don't have to always be with the AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobiles of the world. There are other people out there that do it just fine. And a phone is a phone, and it works. So
shop around. The bottom line, shop around for the plans. Here's kind of an unusual one, and I want to be very clear about this, but for the first 25 years of my working career, I never had a personal phone. It wasn't until I retired when I actually went out and bought my first phone, and that was in 2023. If you're working and your employer gives you a phone, check with that employer. Number one, see if you can bundle your private phone on that plan. And if not, see if it's okay with your employer to use that as your personal phone as well. I checked with my employer. It was perfectly fine. I didn't abuse it or anything else. But I only had one phone. I see all these people packing around 2 phones. They sit in a meeting and they set one and one. I just think there's ways to work around some of that as well. But the sensitivity around that.
Yeah, I'll add one more piece to that. With one of my previous employers, they had if you had to use your personal phone for work things. So for instance, I worked remote. There was an office. I didn't work there on a consistent basis. I traveled in a lot, but I worked from home consistently. And they actually had a thing. If you upload your cell phone bill to the employee portal, they would put that amount back onto your next paycheck. And so for me, it was worth the 4 minutes of downloading it from AT&T and uploading it to the employee portal to make and back then I had to have all the stuff. I had the international plan or whatever. I was getting $90 a month for 4 minutes worth of work. It was definitely worth it. So check with your employer and see if that's one of the perks that they offer.
Wow, $90 a month.
It was expensive. Yeah,
that was expensive. And the other thing, like you're self-employed. It's a tax deduction too. Make sure that you look into the cell phone, shop around, take advantage of the opportunity of saving money with your cell phone.
Can I add one more piece to the phone before we move on? I think
Yes.
going along with the culture piece, you got to really ask yourself, do I need the biggest, most expensive, best iPhone or Google phone or whatever Android on the market? Or could I get by for a short time, right? We're not talking about long-term here. We're saying, and maybe getting rid of the phone. I would love to get rid of my phone. If I could, I'd get rid of it tomorrow. But the question is, do we have to have the biggest, most expensive, nicest, newest one where I'm paying an extra $100 a month on my bill, or I'm paying an extra $50 a month on my bill to finance that phone? Or could I go get, pay $100 one time for an older iPhone and get by during this time of saving money, getting out of debt, figuring life out?
Getting your budget aligned. Exactly. Yeah. And even like, I like a phone for a phone. I don't particularly care about searching and doing this, although I do like it when I'm driving in the wilderness, that it kind of points me in the right direction. But you're right. It's crazy. And we'll touch on that on another episode about the latest and the greatest and everything else. But let's go to housing. Whether you're renting or whether you're owning, I'll tell you, when you're renting, you can negotiate a lower rent. Typically, landlords don't want to have it open. And so if you kind of say, well, I've been looking and potentially thinking about going finding something smaller, don't be unreasonable, but try to negotiate a lower rent on your rent.
Especially if you're a good tenant, right? You're not breaking stuff. You're not a pain in the tuchus. They're more likely to work with you on something like that.
Exactly. And I'll give you, if you're owning, the big thing now in 2024 and in the recent, last probably 10 years, is a lot of people are house poor. They've got a really nice house that they probably don't need, but they're putting 50 or 60% of their income into a house. Shake that up and see what comes out with that. You don't need to be house poor. And we probably should have talked about that when you're looking for buying a house. Get one that's affordable, that fits your needs, that's priced right.
Let's just call something out on this. The bank will give you a huge loan, way more than you should ever be paying for a house. It's crazy what they'll give you.
Yeah.
Don't let the bank determine what your mortgage will be. You determine what your mortgage should be based on what we talked about on setting your budget and the percentages and whatnot, and then go find a house that fits that price point. And I want to say, I think it's important to call out, this is something that we both practice what we preach on here. Up until 3 years ago, we could afford it and it was fine. We had a really nice, beautiful house. It was a Texas behemoth. 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, a nice garage, a nice yard, all these things. We built it brand new. But when I decided to launch my own business, I had to cut back dramatically because I didn't know what was going to happen. And so what did I do? I sold my house and I bought a much smaller house, much smaller. We're now in a 3-bedroom, 2 bath, and it's wildly different than what we were in. However, I knew that I was going to need more money for other things while we launched this business. And I didn't want to be house poor while doing that and add that extra level of frustration or concern.
Right. And actually, you got to a point where you own your house. You don't pay a mortgage. You went from a pretty hefty mortgage and a beautiful house to a livable house. It's a good house, I would like that, but it also, the timing is what worked out. Now, I will come back with my perpetuity word. That doesn't mean you always need to live there. You may do so if you choose so, but you don't need to do that. You can, get the business off the ground and everything else. So here's a couple of other things about housing. Get a roommate. Rent a room out. You can always say, hey, if you need some place for the summer to stay, a couple $100 and you can rent this room out, or rent out some kind of a space for that house. That's still a good way to get a lower cost on your housing.
Yeah, that's a great way. And again, we've never lived in a time when this is easier. You don't have to put an ad in the newspaper and wait 6 weeks to find someone who's willing to move into you as a roommate. You can now go on Airbnb and rent out a single room, and you can have that post live within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
and you can have your renter picked out and moved in within the month.
And now I'm going to go on my boomer rampage a little bit here. Utilities, a programmable thermostat, turn your porch light off at night and all that stuff. Let me tell you, turn your lights out when you're not in the room. Simple. What am I? Money grow on trees. I remember telling you kids as you were that, turn the lights out when you leave the room. Seriously, be conscious of costs when it comes to utilities. You don't need a 50-minute shower. You need to get clean, right? You don't need to leave the lights on all over the house. Even some of the things about leaving things plugged in while you're out for some extended amount of time. Just be cost conscious of your utilities, and it will actually lower your costs. So,
yeah, and I think a lot of times people talk about, oh, turn your lights off or do all these things. I don't think those are probably your biggest impact areas, though. I think that, like, for the house that we're in now, it has no gas, which I wish that it had gas. It's all electric.
yeah,
And running my air conditioner and running my heater are the two biggest things that pull financially from us. And so putting that thermostat up or down, even just 1 degree, which 1 degree, you're not going to feel a huge difference, but that could save you 30 or 40 bucks a month by just adjusting it by 1 degree.
yeah, and even adjusted at times you're not around, or just be cost conscious. I'm with you. Turning the lights off probably saves pennies at most a given month, but it's just the mental thing, and it's kind of the cost conscience about where your money is going. So here's another one: insurance premiums and insurance costs. Boy, I've looked at what my deductible is. If you have a $500 deductible or $1,000 deductible, it can maybe make a big difference in your annual or your monthly premium. You can go look at co-payments and shop around and bundle. Just go pay attention to your insurance costs. People go months and years and years and years without going and getting another bid. And I periodically did that, but I actually went out and got some really serious bids this spring. And I saved overall on my insurance costs almost $1,800 a month in just automobile and bundling with my car and things like that, and house. Unbelievable to me that these bandits were taking me for $1,800, but until I did something about it, they deserve to keep that money. So we just lost all of our insurance people that have tuned in.
I'll get them back here in just a second, but I have to say, based on what you just said, it sounds to me like the euros are on you next time.
I'll buy you a cup of coffee. Not the, I'll have a caramel cappuccino, mucciino. No, I'll buy you a black coffee. You can put your own milk in it. So,
well, here's the question. I've got my coffee here. Do you have your coffee there?
I do.
What are you drinking today?
Black coffee. Don't even leave room for cream. Just black coffee.
Just black.
By the way, if you want to save money,
I don't think that's in the notes there, big boy.
It's not in the notes, but let me tell you what. If you really want to save money, drink black coffee. If you really want to save more money, make your own black coffee. And if you really, really want to save money, go buy your black coffee grounds with coupons.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can do that as a boomer. Myself as a millennial, I made a poor man's cappuccino at home today, and it is quite delightful. It's really good stuff, and it's relatively inexpensive. But let me go back to the health insurance stuff here. A lot of people are saying, oh, okay, well, he saved on car insurance, but we need to do a whole episode on this later. But there are multiple types of insurance that you, as a listener, need to have. I'm going to run through a couple. I'd like to get your quick take on this, and then we'll get back to our thing. You need to have auto insurance. Legally, you have to have auto insurance. You probably should have some kind of health insurance. I think that there used to be a law about that, and who knows where that stands now, but you have to have health insurance.
Yeah.
Next, it's probably a good idea to have some type of life insurance, and this changes throughout your life, the type and the amounts and all that stuff, but you need some type of life insurance, not necessarily for yourself, but for your loved ones who you potentially leave behind. That's morbid to talk about, but the truth is you got to have something.
Yep.
Fourth, you need homeowners or renters insurance to protect all of your possessions within the house and the house itself. A lot of times businesses will offer this, but some type of long-term disability or long-term care, probably a good thing to have. I'm a little hesitant on these last two, identity theft and an umbrella policy. I don't know how I feel about them. I think that we're living in a crazy digital age where your identity is probably at risk. Again, another episode, but it's more than just auto insurance that we're talking about. So if you take those 8 items and you say, well, I have only 6 of them, go look at all 6 of them and get quotes for all 6 of them and shop around to figure out how you can save money.
Yep. I'm going to add one here, and it's a plug for a stock I bought, but pet insurance. There's a lot of people that absolutely love their pets, and pet insurance is another thing, but shop around. It's actually very expensive, but the veterinary care for pets can be very, very expensive. And so the insurance is you pay now in case you need to use it later, and the masses pay for the few. So anyway, probably not going past that one, but
I love that. It's like you're playing the lottery with people's pets here. The sicker their pets get, the more money you make, man. What's going on?
I love pets. I really, really do. So anyway, but we were going along on this path, and the shopping tips. Here's a good thing to do. This is how you're going to save money. Make note of this. Take notes. Take this to heart. But compare prices and look for discounts or coupons before you buy something. Really, go do your due diligence in comparing shopping, especially if it's a big ticket item. But when you're at the grocery store, remember to have a list. Look for discounts. Those things are on sale, 3 for $5, and then compare prices and look at those before you buy it. No sense of looking for them afterwards, right?
Yeah, no, that's good. And there is websites now that will help you compare. So you can do it really in a short amount of time as compared to, when the boomers were running things. And you have to go look in magazines and newspapers and go to physical locations and write them in a pencil and then erase when you find a better price, and easier.
Yeah. And then another thing is to totally avoid impulse buying. What that means is you typically buy things, oh, wow, I got to have that, or oh, that's cool, or look at that price, but you didn't need it, or you didn't plan to buy it, and you go buy it. Avoid that impulse buying.
I read an interesting article about impulse buying recently. They set up that right at the cash register. They've got the candy bars, the gum, the magazines, like all the weird little trinkets. And what they do is they'll put like the beef jerky stick there. And it's this little tiny beef jerky stick for $1. You're like, oh, it's only $1. I'll throw it up there. But what you don't know is if you walk, 50 feet away to the beef jerky aisle, you can get an entire bag of beef jerky that has like 15 of those things for like $5, $10. And so your cost per jerky stick is actually way less to get the full bag as opposed to just buying one for $1.
Yeah. The marketing people in grocery stores, and we could do a whole episode on that, but don't ever buy anything or put anything in your basket at the checkout stand. Don't let your kids or your grandkids put anything in the basket. Teach them as you're going through the store to look, not an impulse buying right at the very end. They make bank off of that. And then they put things the same height as the purchasing. So if you ever go to the cereal aisle, at the level where the kids are going to be is where the sugary breakfast cereals are. They're masters at marketing to get your money.
Last piece on impulse buying. Depending on where you are and what your budget is, you should probably set a limit, right? If you're making pretty good money, say, okay, anything that's over $50, I'm not gonna buy that today. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, I need that or I want that. I'm gonna sleep on it a day or two. I'm gonna leave this location. If I still want it tomorrow, come back and buy it. If you still need it the next day, come back and buy it. But just set a limit to anything over that amount. I don't buy the day I think of it. I wait a day and see if you still need it as much the next day.
Here's a really, really good one. And, I've been on a couple of big kicks with my boomer ideas here, but pack your own lunch instead of going out and buying it. You would not believe how much it costs to go out for lunch, out for dinner, out for breakfast versus going to the grocery store with your shopping list, buying your goods, cooking it yourself, and making it at home. So pack your lunch instead of buying it outside. Big, big way of actually saving a lot of money.
Yeah. And how many people in the office spend a whole lot of money going out to eat 3, 4, 5 times per week? Can we finish off here? We've got, I think, 2 items left before we wrap up, but borrow, swap, or reuse items instead of buying new ones. And we're in a really bad time in human history and American history right now where we think we always have to have the newest, latest, greatest when it really doesn't change that much from the one you currently have. And I know we kind of talked about phones earlier, but I think it's more than that. Up until let's just look at human history. Let's say, for sake of argument, the Earth is around 8,000 years of human history. It really wasn't until the last 100 years that people had more than like a pair or 2 of shoes.
Yeah,
and we think we've got to have 1 pair for every outfit. Like some people have Converse All-Stars and they've got them in 10 colors. Which, if you have the money, I have no problem with that. The problem is you put your Converse All-Stars, pink Converse All-Stars on your credit card, and then you put your blue ones on the credit card, and then you put your green ones and your American flag ones on the credit card. That's the difference that we're talking about here. We don't care if you have Converse All-Stars. It's, do you have the funds and able to be able to do that? You don't actually need that. You can only wear 1 pair at a time.
Exactly. So reuse items, right? And swap or borrow. There's some of those stores. My granddaughters absolutely love to go to the secondhand store and look for unique shirts and things like that. I go to get tools. I can find some great tools. So yeah, be wise in your shopping. But here's the last one before we move on, actually, and cancel out on this episode or walk away from this episode, is choose free or low cost activities for fun. You don't need to go spend money. My wife and I have this saying is, let's go out and let's go do something. She says, we can't go out. And every time we go out, it costs us money. And it does. If we go out and we go to the grocery store, we go to eat, it costs us money. So we choose to stay in. You can read, you can play games, you can even just go to a park or go for a walk. Those are the type of low cost activities that you should be supplementing to make your budget meet. And remember, that's what we're talking about, is spending less, being cost conscious, and helping to balance your budget.
Yeah. Here's a great tip for choosing the low cost activities. Your local library has shelves and rows and rooms full of books that you can get for free. But what many people don't know is they also have DVDs you can go and get. So you don't have to go out to a movie, go to the library, pick up a movie, come home and make your own popcorn. Man, I just saved you like $38.50.
That's right.
Because you got to pay for your popcorn and your butter. But
exactly.
Beyond that, the library also offers a streaming service. When you cut out your other streaming services, Hulu and Netflix, there are apps through your local library that you can watch TV shows and movies for free. And we do it all the time. It's wonderful. And so there are really easy ways to still do the things you want to do, but to do them at a fraction of the cost.
So I do want to point out as we end this episode, but you don't need to do all these things. You might think these things are different, but just put these things to heart and make sure you understand where your spending is and what you're doing. Because remember, just because it's different
doesn't mean it's wrong. See you next time.
Have a good day.